It's time for Living with Victory, a program of hope and encouragement brought to you by Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Now, here are your hosts, Tony and Laureen Giorgio, with today's message of perseverance.
Jesus is with me when the storm clouds gather, when the winds of this world are blowing strong.
Good morning, this is Tony Giorgio. Welcome to Living with Victory, proving life isn't about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, giving you peace, power, and joy through perseverance and faith, above all, in Jesus Christ. Hey, a quick reminder, you can help a family with seriously ill children traveling frequently to hospital clinics for treatment by donating to our Fuel for Life program. And we can help them with their gas expenses because according to social workers in a wide variety of hospitals, they are missing appointments due to the high cost of gas. Now, Compassion is working with children's hospitals in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Children's Hospital at the University of Pittsburgh, the Arnold Palmer Hospital in Orlando, Florida, and also Missions Children's Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina. So we're getting it out there to help as many as we can. Okay? We're going to change up a little bit of the format this morning. Part one of How Great is Our God. I'm going to read you something from the Chicago Tribune, 1960. It was in the 1960s somewhere. Laureen's cousin sent this to us. Pay attention because there's a lot to it. It says, so the Bible may be true after all. Remember, 1960s. It says here, my mother-in-law shared this with me. I was so impressed that I felt I must share it with you. And this was from Mrs. John Coolidge back in the day. Did you know that the space program is busy proving what has been called myth in the Bible is true? Mr. Harold Hill, president of the Curtiss Engineer Company in Baltimore, Maryland, and a consultant in the space program, relates the following developments. And I'm quoting here, I think one of the most amazing things that God has for us today happened recently at Greenbelt, Maryland. They were checking the position of the sun, moon, and planets out in space so they might know exactly where they would be 100 years and 1,000 years from now. We had to know this so we don't send a satellite up and have it bump into something later on in its orbit. We had to lay out the orbit in terms of the life of the satellite and where the planets will be so the whole thing will not bog down. They ran a couple of computer measurements back and forth over the centuries, and the computer, came to a halt. The computer stopped and put up a red sign. It was a signal, which meant that there was something wrong either with the information fed into it or with the results as compared to the standards. They called in the service department to check it out, and they said, it's perfect. The IBM head of the operation said, what's wrong? Well, we have found there is a day missing in space in elapsed time. They scratched their heads and tore their hair out almost. There was no answer. One religious fellow on the team said, you know, one time I was in Sunday school and they talked about the sun standing still. They didn't believe him, but they didn't have any other answer, so they said, show us. So he got a Bible and went back to the book of Joshua, chapter 10, verse 12, 13, where they found a pretty ridiculous statement for anybody who has common sense. I'm quoting. There they found the Lord saying to Joshua, fear them not. I have delivered them into thy hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua was concerned because he was surrounded by the enemy, and if darkness fell, they, the enemy, would overpower them. So Joshua asked the Lord to make the sun stand still. That's right. The sun stood still, and the moon stayed and hastened not to go down about a whole day. The spaceman said, there is the missing day. They checked the computers going back into the time it was written and found it was close, but not close enough. The elapsed time that was missing back in Joshua's day was 23 hours and 20 minutes, not a whole day. They read the Bible, and there it said about or approximately a day. These little words in the Bible are important. Remember that. And so now, without further delay, I'm going to say hi to my wonderful wife and co-host who'll have the topic, the scripture verse, and get you into this mystery. Laureen, how you doing?
Oh, hi. I'm so glad to be here today. Wow, how great is our God that he could do this. I'm just going to reread Joshua 10:12 through 13. This is from the Amplified Bible. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord on the day when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the Israelites, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, be silent and stand still at Gibeon, and you, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine being an Israelite, listening to God stop the sun and the moon?
Hey, sun, hey, moon. Okay.
I mean, and the sun stood still, verse 13, and the moon stayed until the nation took vengeance upon their enemies.
Wow.
Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heavens and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day, 23 hours and 20 minutes. I don't know about you, but that just thrills my soul.
Yep.
What a God we serve.
No doubt about that.
I mean, you have to just kind of realize the moon and sun stood still.
Yeah, and think of it, there was no problem. The orbit stayed the same. No planets collided. Right?
Exactly.
Everything seemed normal.
I just want to go back. The book of Jasher, it is found in Joshua 10:12 through 13, as well as 2 Samuel 1:18 through 27. It is mentioned in the Bible in those two books, but was lost and has not survived to modern times. So if you're thinking of trying to find the book of Jasher in King James Version, you won't. I just wanted to give that little explanation. You know, sometimes we make our problems bigger than God. But a God that could stop the sun and the moon for almost a day, our problems really seem very, very tiny and like little ants compared to that. So when we're praying and talking to a God who could stop the sun and the moon about our problems and fixing our finances and fixing our family and whatever else you're trying to accomplish in your life, just remember the God you're talking to. Yeah. Get him out of that little box we all have a habit of putting him in.
That's right. Let him be the God, you know?
I mean, he did put the stars in place. He did put the planets in place. And this proves it. Yeah. They're under his control. So you think he can't find you a job? You think you can't get the wisdom enough to learn so that you could pass your class? Just think about your problem. You really think it's bigger than him?
It's God's time, not yours.
Exactly.
He sees all. He knows where you're headed.
Exactly.
He knows what you need. Understand, things happen at his time. Don't be impatient.
Actually, if you stop and think about it, it's better that it happens at his time because he sees all of the pitfalls. He does have our backs, but sometimes we insist on moving ahead when he says stop. And when he says stop, we should just stop whether we understand it or not. You may be going off to something that looks really good, but he knows if it's good or not, and he wants you to have his best.
Just recently, we were heading on a different path, not a different path, but going after something and rushing and expanding and trying to put it together and doing all this, and we're going to do it.
And it looked like it was the right thing to do.
It was right on target, right up to the last minute when we wanted to push forward. It just hit a brick wall. It wasn't time.
But understand, we felt confused, and we felt
like,
a little down, and we felt, oh my God, why did this happen? But then, you know what? When you get a history with God, you learn to stop and say, okay, Lord, I had my moments, but you know what? I choose to trust you. I don't get it, but thank God I know the one who does.
And the point is, how great is our God? He stops the moon and the sun.
He knew the Israelites needed help. They didn't hesitate to say, God, we can't overcome them.
Right.
So what does he do? He didn't say, I mean, he could have said, well, look, I'm going to give you all of the weapons. I'm going to, you know, I'll whatever it needs, I'll dig the pits for you. No, he said, no. I'm just going to stop everything and give you a chance to get it.
Right, exactly. We're talking about infinite power. We're talking about the Almighty Spirit. We're not talking about mortal man. We're not talking about a tree. This is living, breathing.
Who came down and died for us.
Yeah.
He loved us that much. He wants a relationship with us. And when you have that relationship with him, you will realize how great is our God, and how tender, and how merciful, and how faithful, and how loving.
Exactly. And, you know, we've seen, you know, our goal for the next year is we're going to raise $50,000. Well, let me tell you,
and we don't have a clue.
Mom and Pop over here going to raise $50,000. Yeah, okay. But, you know, since we said that and we prayed about it, we are seeing things come about that could really do that. But not today. Not necessarily tomorrow, but, you know,
in God's time.
In God's time, we can actually see the possibilities.
And I believe he holds off at times to get us ready to receive what he has for us, because we are not always ready to receive the promotion. We have to be in a certain state of mind, a certain emotional state. Our faith has to be where it should be.
If you look at I know we keep saying our lives, but after all these years, we've got some testimonies. All I can tell you is, remember, these little words in the Bible are really, really important. You know, there's still 40 minutes missing in this story. And next week, we will pick up part 2 and tell you where that 40 minutes went, okay?
Well, I just want to make the offer of our CDs of any show that you might want to hear that maybe touched you in a special way, that you would like to maybe even send to a friend or a relative, that if you think it might help them, we would be very happy to do so. If you go to our website, livingwithvictory.org, there is an offers page there. You can use our PayPal. They are $3 for 1 or $2 for 5. Or if you would like us to pray with you about anything, just hit the contact button. We would be more than happy to pray with you.
Now, this is Tony
and Laureen
saying, hey, you keep dancing in the rain this week. Join us again next week. And hey, tell your friends. Remember, Jesus is your umbrella.
You've been listening to Living with Victory with your hosts, Tony and Laureen Giorgio, who for 30 years have advocated for seriously ill children through Compassion Children's Foundation. Many families who have children that receive daily treatments for their illnesses are extremely challenged to even begin to get their kids the life-saving treatments they need due to current gas prices. Compassion Children's Foundation is there to lend a hand. That is our mission, and you can become a partner in helping. Support for this radio ministry comes from Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Your tax-deductible donations can be sent to Compassion Children's Foundation, P.O. Box 1982, Maggie Valley, North Carolina, 28751. You can also donate through your PayPal account by logging on to livingwithvictory.org. Tony is available to speak to your group or church members. You can call him at 828-926-4600. Join us again next week at this time for another uplifting story of dancing in the rain. Thanks for listening.